This is the self-publishing news for September the 13th, 2021. And boy, it wasn't a particularly busy week, but we do have some noteworthy news items. All right, let's get right to it. IngramSpark just did a service alert announcement. They actually did two over the past week here. But essentially, they are increasing their prices. As a result of those industry-wide challenges, effective November 6th, 2021, IngramSpark is increasing print pricing as follows. The United States market gets 6% increase. UK and Australia markets get a 3% increase. These changes do not apply to freight, handling, or title setup related fees. They've got a full updated card here on all of their rates and such that you can take a look at this. Anybody that watches on this replay, I will go ahead and put a link inside the description down below so you can take a look at it. I was just discussing before we even got into this news segment here about IngramSpark and how I've always been just such a huge fan. But at some point, they changed a little bit of the user interface over the past year, and there's been some clunkiness in their dashboards, and I've had to report this numerous times. And here's the sad part. I was in the midst of actually creating a video about how to publish a hardcover book. So I reached out to a good buddy of mine, Thomas Bradley, and I said, hey, you want a hardcover done for you? And he's like, hey, absolutely, let's do it. So we ended up getting the hardcover all uploaded there. But then for whatever reason, something happened in the actual interior. The interior looks fine on our end, but inside the previewer, it comes all out jumbled. And unfortunately, all we get is a bunch of boilerplate responses to go read this and that, hey, pretty much you're at fault and you should go ahead and fix this. And that doesn't sit well with me. And now they're changing the price structure. They're increasing this. This means it takes out of your bottom line. So if you have any books that are published through IngramSpark, you may need to go in and bump it up 6% or 3% based on the specific region. So that way you're still getting paid the same. I'm not sure that I feel comfortable about this. I really would like to see IngramSpark doing their best and improving their platform because the feedback's coming in and I see other authors beyond myself having the same gripe and concern, and now they're asking for more money. I love IngramSpark's distribution. It's pretty awesome. Is it perfect? No, not by any stretch, but I really do like the quality of product they put out. So that's why it pains me when I have to sit here and look at price increases, and not to mention just a user interface that's clunky and acts up and is just kind of weird and a bit outdated. I would recommend IngramSpark, if you happen to be watching this, you really need to probably take a look at that user interface and compare it to other user interfaces that are on the marketplace. Because I'm going to tell you that this right here feels like early 2000s, if not into the 1990s. It needs to be updated in a way that makes sense, especially the sales dashboard. The sales dashboard, come on. So at any rate, I'm not going to hate on IngramSpark, but I got to tell you that right now we're on thin ice. I'm just really not liking this information. That is my opinion, folks. The fact is they're increasing the rates and they're doing it, they feel justifiably. Hey, if you have not had the opportunity yet, I really highly recommend that every Wednesday over on Twitter, Timothy Lewis from the Alliance of Independent Authors does essentially a Twitter chat, and it's all done around hashtag Indie Author Chat, and it starts at 3 p.m. Eastern Daytime. That's noon Pacific. Any rate, this past week, they did a very interesting one, and I missed out on this one. How many books do you need to sell to be a full-time author? This one always grabs my attention, and I know a lot of browsing browsing authors, aspiring authors, people who haven't broken into the business because they want to really hey, is this going to be something that's going to make sense for me. So if you're the type of person that's kicking tires and wondering, hey, if this is for you, what I would recommend is go take a look at this piece. And they actually just curated all of the answers and put them here onto the page. And you could be able to take a look at Indie Author Chat even furthermore if you just go over to Twitter and just put in hashtag Indie Author Chat. You should be able to see the most recent stuff that Tim Lewis did. So big shout out to Tim. Thank you so much. He actually had me as a guest previously. All right, the fine folks over at Kindlepreneur put out the most epic blog post you will ever read. Chef's kiss to them and double banana stickers because Jason Hamilton came to write on the Kindlepreneur about the ACX versus Findaway Voices debate. It's a complete review. And when I mean a complete review, This thing is nearly exhaustive. It is a very in-depth and detailed perspective on Findaway Voices versus ACX. You've heard me gush about Findaway Voices, but I have to be straight up and honest with you. Findaway Voices may not be for everyone, same as what ACX may not be for everyone. But knowing what the two of them bring to the table will make a world of a difference in you selecting the proper avenue. Me personally, I like to use both, but that's just my preference. So if you're doing audiobooks or you're considering on doing audiobooks, go take a look at this piece over in Kindlepreneur.com. And it's written by Jason Hamilton. Again, great work, Jason. Really love your insights. Very thorough. Awesome stuff. All right, next item up in the news here. The fine folks over at Fictionary got a blog post up. It's called Editing Path from Self-Editing to Professional Editing. It's by Anne Ryan Walker. I saw it says any Ryan Walker, but I think they probably typoed that. I'm not really sure. But at any rate, you could take a look here, talking all about essentially, starting out the self-editing, going to professional editing. I really don't need to go too much further into this. Fictionary, by the way, is it's obviously for fiction manuscripts, but it is software that goes in and identifies areas of improvement. It's much different than, say, a Grammarly or Pro Writing Aid. It's a little bit more granular in the approach on how you're working a story arc to the character development and everything else in between. But Fictionary, take a look at that. I have not got a chance to dabble with it yet, though I do plan on sometime in the year 2022. All right, moving forward, I wanted to kind of bring some good news and some information that might help out some of you folks here. USA Today actually covered something here recently on their 10 Best site. 30 cool indie bookstores across the country that you'll want to check out. Of course, this is in the U.S. If you happen to be watching outside the U.S., my apologies. Everything from Mobile, Alabama to New Haven, Connecticut to Ohio, California. You might be saying, oh, well, what big whoop, 30 independent bookstores, to visit in the United States. Yes, indie bookstores that you could possibly get your foot in. If they're getting covered in a piece like this, you know that this piece is going to continue to get traffic sent to it. So that means there's going to be residual traffic going to these bookstores. So you would do yourself a big favor by reviewing this list. And if it's local to you, walk in, introduce yourself, say, hey, I saw this piece and I thought I would, let you know I'm an indie author and I would like to know, what do I need to do to establish a relationship and possibly put one of my books on your shelves? That would probably be your best first step. And of course, you aren't local. You can always just reach out to the indie bookstore and find out, hey, is there any way that I can get my books over on your bookshelf? So those of you that are chasing after brick and mortar stores, folks, there's a list of 30 right here on the 10best.com. Again, link will be inside the description after the broadcast. The Wisconsin Public Radio brought up a very interesting news piece here. Patients grieve firing of Mayo Clinic Doctor after he self-published a book about COVID-19 and 2020 politics. So this doctor, Stephen Wise, he's an internal medical physician, and he self-published his personal blog as a book titled Carnage in America, COVID-19, Racial Injustice, and the Demise of Donald Trump. Well, Mayo Clinic did not like it so much because he did make reference to the fact that he was a practicing doctor over at the Mayo Clinic. And nowhere inside the book did it say that the views expressed inside the book were that of his own and not of Mayo Clinic. And so, yeah, he got fired. And his patients are just absolutely up in arms. They're very concerned because he had about 750 patients in all. 750. That's a lot for him self-publishing a book about COVID. So, he was very polarizing in his view. It's going to offend some people if they're not on his side of the argument. All that to say this, that if you just kind of dig a little further down, apparently this was a repeat offense. Mayo Clinic didn't like him doing this prior, I guess, on some articles or blog posts online and just, saying some stuff that they really didn't like being referenced to the Mayo Clinic in general. So yeah, self-published author. So hopefully Dr. Wise is able to, capitalize on this this 15 minutes of fame and hopefully get some more books put out that will, hopefully replace his income. Lord knows that he's a doctor, so I'm sure he was getting a substantial amount. So, hey, speaking of self-published, as if we were on a podcast talking about something like that, guess what? It has been 10 years after 50 Shades of Grey was launched. Not too many people realize that 50 Shades of Grey by E.L. James, the 50 Shades of Grey was just a big hit, but not many people realize that this was a self-published book originally. And within a year, James actually had landed a trad pub deal. But what they do is this is over on scroll.in. Scroll talks a little bit more about how the self-publishing industry has changed just tremendously within the last 10 years. And it just further validates some of the information that I've shared here on this podcast and other experts have shared themselves, in that self-publishing is on the rise. It is less and less being looked down upon. Sure, some trad pub authors as well as companies, look down their nose at self-published books. But to be honest, there are a lot of self-publishers out there that are probably making a far better income without having to part ways with their rights, or without having to bend or flex for a particular company's bottom line. And so, yeah, E.L. James, a great example. And I do believe it was earlier this year that she ended up getting the rights back to her content to where she could distribute it through her own imprint, which is, oddly enough, an indie imprint. So that means that Trad Pub's no longer involved and that this is all owned by her. So kudos to E.L. James. Another great victory. Last but not least, the folks over at Lulu said, hey, calendar season's here, and they recommend that you consider getting a calendar. Now is the perfect time to create a 2022 calendar. They make great gifts, the perfect addition to your online store. Interested? Learn more about creating a calendar using Lulu's fast and easy calendar maker. Go over to lulu.com, folks, and if you happen to do a calendar, you can get 10% off that product with Calendars 10 until September the 17th of 2021. Again, that's Calendars, all caps, 10, for 10% off your products. That is the news for September the 13th, 2021. What did you think about some of these news items? Was some of it interesting, or did you find it a little bit of a snooze, or was there a piece that I did not cover that you probably felt was significant? Let me know inside the comments.